try to remember after tonight to make a note on where we got to. Okay, so, you know, if some of these are too easy for you, just say and I'll skip them.
Okay. Sounds good.
Like, does 8 give you any problem?
No, because you just have to plug it in, so.
Exactly. This might be worth, what's the answer to 9?
Um, honestly, I'm just having a little issues reading it. Give me a sec.
It's absolute value of 1 minus a.
Um, I really don't remember absolute value.
Okay, absolute value is just the positive value. So
Okay,
I have
so,
the, whoops, hold on. I need my other screen up there also. Let me move that left and this right and go down a page. In other words, when you have the absolute value of 1 minus 12, that's equal to the absolute value of minus 11 equals 11. Okay.
okay.
The positive result is always what absolute value means.
Okay.
And I can zoom in on this. How about 10?
10 if AB minus C equals, um,
So first of all, if I've got AB equals C and C equals KB, what can I write from that? What has to be true? I feel like we went over this one.
I think we went over one similar to it,
Okay. Maybe I went
maybe.
over it with somebody else, but perhaps. I think it was with somebody else. I did do a session recently where we went over some ACT. It's probably that student. But anyway, how do I relate A to K based on those two equations?
Well, if AB equals C, AB also equals KB,
There you
maybe?
go. If they're both equal to C, then they're equal to one another. And now solve for K.
So subtract B from,
Not subtract.
oh, divide.
Right. And so K ends up being equal to A.
Okay.
Now, the only thing bad about dividing by a variable is if it happens to be 0, you can't really do it. You lose one of your solutions.
Right.
Now, the reason I know that it can't be 0 is they put this little qualifier in there saying B times C is not equal to 0. And what that tells you is that there's no way B is equal to 0. So
Uh-huh.
if I know B cannot be equal to 0, then it's okay to divide both sides by B.
Okay.
All right. All right. Let me go to the next page. Whoops. I guess I need that on the left.
Mhm.
Okay, number 11. Let me, I can blow it up just a little bit. There you go.
Um, what do those exponents say?
3 and 13. Now I can blow it up even more.
Is it, um, oh,
Let's review the rules of exponents. If I had x squared times x cubed, what would I do with the exponents?
you would subtract, or,
Add them.
I think you add them.
Addition goes with multiplication. Just remember that.
Okay.
If I'm dividing, then I'm going to subtract them.
Okay.
And if I am double exponentiating them, which is what I call this, because the x is being exponentiated and the whole thing is being exponentiated again,
Uh-huh.
that's when you multiply them.
Okay.
Those three rules are the only three rules you need to know regarding these exponents.
Okay.
You're definitely tested on the ACT on exponents. You got to know how to cover all, or how to handle all three of these situations. So
Okay.
what's the answer here?
X to the 39th.
Correct. Number 12. First of all,
If,
notice what the problem is with 12. I cannot multiply both sides by x.
mm-hmm.
Means I can't cross multiply.
Okay.
Reason is I don't know if x is positive or negative. If x happens to be negative, then I would have to reverse the direction of that inequality. As long as it's positive, it would work, but I can't solve this by doing it that way. The technical way to solve this is to subtract the 1/7 from both sides. I can do that without worrying about the direction of the inequality. Now I have that, and now I have to figure this out.
Okay.
Now they say there's actually this is a great problem for using back solving. Because
Okay.
I don't really know how to figure that out, to be honest. I know how to make it equal. In other words, if I had set x equal 14, that's 2/7 or 1/7 minus 1/7, so that would satisfy it. But I don't know
Right.
all of the values of x. But when it says what's the largest possible value for x, let's back solve it. Where am I going to start? Which of the 5 answers should I start with?
Um,
The largest one.
the biggest one?
Yeah, because it's asking, if I started with 1/2 and 1/2 worked, that wouldn't tell me anything. I'd still have to try 7. And I'd
Right.
still have to try 14, 15, and 28 because it's asking me for the largest. So
Right.
I'm starting at the largest one and working my way down.
Okay.
Does 28 work?
Um,
And actually, since we're going to do it by back solving, it actually makes more sense to leave it in its original form. Is 28 a solution to that? Is 1/14 greater than 1/7?
yes.
No.
No, it's not.
Okay. So 28's not right. How about 15? Is 2/15 greater than 1/7?
2/15.
Mm-hmm. In other words, if J is the answer, then x is 15th, and I would have 2/15. Is that greater than or equal to 1/7?
I don't think it is.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
It's smaller. Okay? Because basically
Okay.
2/15 you can kind of think is the same as 1/7.5, right?
Right.
And 1/7.5 is a smaller number than 1/7.
Okay.
If the numerators are equal and this denominator is bigger, this is a smaller number.
Okay.
Okay? So 15 doesn't work either.
Right.
Now try 14. Does that work?
No.
Yes, it does. I got 1/7 is equal to 1/7, but that allows for equality.
Right. So
So,
I didn't know if it was like,
well,
well, I guess because
14
it's what.
is the largest possible value for x.
Okay.
Like 15 doesn't work. No number greater than 15 works, in fact. But 14 works, and 7's going to work. and 1/2 is going to work. But since
Okay.
they ask for the largest one, as soon as we figure out the largest one on this list works, we're done. I don't need to test 7 or 1/2. Neither of those is larger than the number 14. So
Okay.
whenever they qualify it, and you're going to do it by back solving, start with what the largest. If they'd have said the smallest instead of largest, then I would start with 1/2 and work my way up.
Okay.
Okay? About 13.
Ooh, circumference. Good. 6 pi is divided evenly into 12 sectors. What is the total measure in degrees of 5 sectors?
Now be careful in the sense that PCT is famous for giving you information that's not needed. This is a perfect example of it. There's my 12 sectors. What's the sum of the angle of 5 of those? Does it have anything to do with the circumference?
No.
No, it doesn't. Not a bit. So the fact that they tell you the circumference is 46 pi is irrelevant information that's meant to confuse you and fool you. What do you consider these slices, the measurement of each one, if there's 12? What's the total measurement around that point in degrees?
I think there's 360.
Yeah, around any point, it's always 360 degrees, right?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if you go from here to there, that's 90. That's another 90. That's 180 degrees. Keep going. That's 270. Go all the way. That's 360. So what's the measurement of each slice?
Maybe 30.
Right. And it wants to know the degree measurement of 5 of the sectors.
Um, 150.
That's how you do it. And you don't even take into account the 46 pi, not needed.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely think that on the last ACT I took, I was like the kid that like saw the 46 pi and ended up using
Well,
like
it's easy to do because
formula.
a person's natural instinct here is going to be to solve this circle for the radius.
Yeah, nope, definitely.
If they give you the circumference, you can solve for the radius, and then you can get the area, you can get all kinds of stuff. But we don't need the area or the radius. All we need to know is that it's 360 degrees around a point.
Okay. Interesting.
How am I going to get the average?
You add all of them up and divide by the number of days.
5 by 5, right. So let's not waste our time doing that, but that's how we do it. This is one of the few problems where having a calculator actually helps. Believe it or not, there's not very many problems that having a calculator helps, and I'll bet you there's even more that having a calculator hurts. It gets you going in the wrong direction.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. For example, they asked you what that was,
Oh,
and you put it into your calculator, you're going to get a decimal as an answer.
yeah.
12 and some 13 and some decimal. Now, if you happen to have a calculator that's got that button on it where you can put it into fraction format, then you might be able
Mhm.
to use it. But you'd spend a lot of time getting a decimal, and decimal isn't going to be one of the multiple choices. So then you either have to convert that decimal to the proper fraction, but really the way to do this problem is to manually add 1/8 to 2/3 to 3/4, finding a common denominator of 24. Add the whole number separately, so you end up with 12 plus 3/24 plus 16/24 plus 18/24. And then add those separately, you get 37/24, which is the same as 1 and 13/24. Now you add your 12 and you get 13 and 13/24. And that would be one of the multiple choice answers. Okay? Whereas
Okay.
if you were to put this in your calculator just like this, you're going to get an answer that's like 13.568, who knows. Now you have to know that that is equal to 13/24. Like I said, if you have a TI-84, you have a key for doing that. You probably have one on the ends part. What do you have? Actually, they force you to use a special calculator for this, don't they? They don't let you use your primary calculator. At least they don't for the
Yeah, no.
SAT. For the ACT, I'm not 100% sure, but for the SAT, they give you a minimal calculator that lets you do addition and multiplication, but not a lot else.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. I don't think
Um,
it gives you the ability to turn a decimal number into a fraction.
oh gosh. I did not know that.
Well, I might be wrong with the ACT. Your teacher would probably know.
For
Just
the ACT, I know I'm not allowed to use my CAS, but I think you can use a calculator that's a level down from the CAS.
okay, okay. You're not allowed to use the Inspire.
No.
Okay, which means you may, I don't know, you may not have that key that turns decimals into fractions. You know the key I'm talking about?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Well, even if your calculator has it, you'd have to know which one it was anyway. So it's almost safer to not use that feature to do these kind of problems. Uh,
Yeah.
because if you get a decimal, you're not going to know what to do with it. I guess
Yeah.
you can always, once you get a decimal, you could check their multiple choices and put that into your calculator, see if it's equal to 0.568. So you could always kind of work it backwards. So it could be handled, I suppose. But there are lots of problems where having a calculator tends to cause people to dive right in and do it on the calculator, and that's not always the best way to do it. So for 15, which answer?
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure I know for sure it's A, and then I'm pretty sure it's E also.
Well, no, it's A. First of all, let's talk about that. There cannot be two correct answers on
Oh.
there. You will not find any problems that have two correct answers.
Oh, I don't actually know why I chose two. I think because it said equations and I like
Right.
chose two in my
Well,
head.
it looks like in other words, it looks like you could subtract the x plus 3 and take it to the other side, but you can't really because it's a multiplier. So you could
Yeah.
divide both sides by x plus 3, but even if you were able to subtract it, it would turn negative. And
Yeah.
E's got it positive still. It's still an x plus 3.
How did I
So
do that?
E is not the same as A.
No, yeah.
But A is correct. A produces a solution of x equals 6 or x equals minus 3. When they use the word both, they're not referring to there's two answers. They're referring one answer has both of those solutions.
Right.
Go to the next page. These definitely get harder as you go through them. And we're not quite to the hard ones yet. The hard ones tend to start at about 30 or 20 even, or the harder ones. What's that expression the same as?
2x minus 20, I think.
Well, you got a 7 there also.
Do you have to I wasn't sure if you had to distribute the 7
Yeah, in
also.
other words, here's what you have. 7 minus 2 times x minus 10. First step, get rid of the parentheses. So you have 7 minus 2x plus 20, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now simplify by combining the numbers. You get 2x plus 27. Minus 2x plus 27. Excuse me, h. See that?
Yeah.
Okay, how about 17?
60% of x equals 90. X equals...
You can do this two ways. You can set up an equation and solve, or you can look at your answers. There's only one answer there that makes any sense whatsoever. What is it?
54.
Is 60% of 54 90? 60% is less than 1, right?
Yeah.
So when I take 60% of a number and get 90, that number's got to be bigger than 90.
Right. Oh, okay.
So it's got to be 150, right? In other words, it's certainly not 1,500. 60% is more than half. So if it was 1,500, 60% of that would be 900. But 60% of 150 is 90. You're done. You certainly don't need to try any of these. And this is important because frequently, very frequently, this is the better way to do it than to set up an equation. If I were to set up the equation, do you know what it is?
No.
Well, that's why you don't always want to do it that way. Because you don't necessarily know how to set up the equation, but you know how to figure out the answer. If I told you your life depended on you getting this correct, you'd try all 5 of these numbers. And you'd take 60% of all 5 of them, and whichever one gave you 90, that's your answer. But the way to set it up algebraically is 0.6 of means multiply equals 90. That's the setup. Now x is equal to 90 divided by 0.6, and that's 150.
Okay.
Okay? But the other thing about the ACT is they tend to put their answers very far apart. In other words, they don't have 150 and 151 on there. They have 150 and the next closest number is 100 away or 1,000 away.
Yeah.
So it becomes really easy if you look at the answers. A lot of times you can figure out which one it is without going through this process. And this is fine way to do it as long as you know how to set up the algebraic equation. But a lot of people have trouble with that, including me. A lot of times it takes a lot of mental work to figure out how to set up the equation, and then you still have to solve it. So if there's a faster way to get to that answer, you want to examine it. And certainly in this case, just looking at the answers and approximating what 60% of each of these is gives you the answer immediately.
Right. Okay.
Because you know 60% is close to half, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 60% of 54 it's got to be less than 54. Same thing with 15, same thing with 5.4.
Okay.
All right. Probably a good place to stop on number 17. Where did we get to last time? 7? All right.
Yeah.
So we're getting through a little bit more of these each time. And let's see, you have another session scheduled for Friday? Yeah.
Yes.
Friday at 8:30.
Yes.
I will talk to you then, and on Friday I will just text you the meeting ID to this same number, right, that I called?
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Talk to you Friday, Skylar. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.